You were born to a bastard father, so you'll end up the same if things keep going this way. It's really unfortunate that you have someone like him as a dad. My boss at work, Daniel, is always harassing me. Just when I thought I had bumped into him on my precious day off, he started mocking me out of the blue. And it wasn't just me he was mocking. He even made fun of my son. I was at my wit's end and about to explode in anger at Daniel when it happened. My husband and son don't deserve such harsh words from you. My wife, who was supposed to join us later, showed up just in time. As soon as he saw her face, Daniel turned pale and exclaimed, "You are?" "I'm John. I live with my wife, Lisa, and our son Alex. I'm just a regular office worker, and Lisa works at a different company. It is tough not being able to spend much time with my son on weekdays because we both work. But we make sure to have lots of fun on weekend, which Alex always enjoys. I don't know about other families, but I think we're doing pretty well overall. However, there's one thing that has been bothering me. And that's my boss at work, Daniel. For some reason, this guy has it out for me. For instance, one day I was a bit late to work because I dropped my child off at preschool. "Late arrival. You're quite loose with time, aren't you?" he said sarcastically. Another time, just before the end of working hours, when I was getting ready to leave. "Sorry, John, could you take care of this for me?" he said, dumping a massive amount of work on me. And then, just when the documents I had been working on were almost finished. "John, you have that document from before, right?" "Yes, it should be done shortly. There are some parts I'd like you to change." "Understood. Which parts?" "Here, here, here, and here, and change all the data on page 3. The table on page 10 needs to be changed too. Cut everything on page 12, and add 10 pages in its place. You can do that, right?" "Well, yes." Just when the documents were nearly finished, he would suddenly tell me to change the specifications. It was almost like having to start over from scratch. This is the kind of harassment I face every day. It's enough to drive anyone insane. The most troublesome part is that I have no clue why Daniel is targeting me this way. I've never ignored a greeting from him since I joined the company, and I always greet him too. I've never talked back, and I've always worked diligently. Yet, for some reason, he seems to dislike something about me. I just can't figure out what it is. Fortunately, my colleagues and other bosses have been kind. Whenever I was burdened with an unreasonable amount of work, they would always say, "I'll help you out. You're having a tough time. Come on, let's finish this quickly." They volunteered to help without any complaints. With their help behind the scenes, I've managed to keep from breaking down and continue working. I'm sure I would have quit this company if it weren't for these people. Or I would have caused trouble for my family. For the sake of Lisa and Alex, I can't just abandon my job. While being saved by my feelings to my family and the kindness of my colleagues, I endure the harassment and carry on with my daily work. However, no matter how much support I have, the constant harassment inevitably wears me down. I can feel myself getting weaker, even though I'm aware of it. But I didn't want to worry my family, so I tried my best to hide it and always acted cheerful in front of Lisa and Alex. But a family was a thing of wonder. Despite my best efforts to hide it, Lisa somehow noticed that something was off with me. "Hey, you've seemed a bit down lately. Are you okay?" Lisa asked me with a concerned look. "Oh, can you tell? It's not that your expression has changed, but somehow, the atmosphere around you is different. Like you're feeling down about something. Are you being harassed by someone?" Lisa seemed to have sensed that something was off from the slight change in the atmosphere. And she even guessed the reason. "Alex is worried about you too, you know," he said. "Dad seems different." It seemed that my son had also noticed the change in me. Since both my wife and son were worried, I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. Actually, though I didn't intend to talk about it initially, I decided to open up to Lisa about the harassment I had been receiving from Daniel. I see, that must have been hard for you. After hearing everything, Lisa quietly closed her eyes and sympathized with me. Don't worry, you have plenty of people who support you. I agree. And people who do such things will eventually face divine retribution. That boss of yours, Daniel, will surely get fired someday. I hope so. Lisa's words gave me a bit of encouragement. I was incredibly grateful for her comforting words. It made me feel again that I was not alone, and it gave me the strength to persevere in my job once more. Dad, let's go on that ride next. All right, sounds good. On a day when work had finally settled down, I took Alex to the amusement park as I had promised him a month ago. I had been unable to find a time due to Daniel's constant interruptions at work. When I complained about it to a colleague, they said, "We'll take care of your work, so go to the amusement park with your son," and I was able to swap tasks with them. I was truly grateful to have such wonderful colleagues. That's how we finally made it to the eagerly anticipated amusement park. By the way, our plan after this is to dine at a fancy French restaurant that we've been curious about for a while. Lisa mentioned it after seeing a feature in a magazine, saying, "It would be nice to go there as a family when we have a day off." Lisa had some work commitments that day but said she would be done by the afternoon. So, the plan was for Alex and me to enjoy the amusement park first, and then meet up with Lisa for dinner at the French restaurant. It was a rare outing for the whole family. I decided to fully enjoy the day. The amusement park was so much fun. Alex was delighted after enjoying the amusement park to its fullest. I hoped to make up for the worry I might have caused due to work by ensuring he had a great time. Seeing Alex's happy smile made me feel joyous too. It was almost reservation time for the French restaurant, so we waited for Lisa in front of it. That's when it happened. Oh, wow, isn't that a familiar face I see? Just as I was enjoying a lovely time with my adorable son, an unpleasant voice came from behind. Reluctantly turning around, I saw, as expected, Daniel. "Daniel, hello. To be at an amusement park with just you and your son on a day off must be miserable, right?" Daniel taunted, even on his day off. "Well, a hopeless guy like you could be dumped by his wife any day now. You'd better enjoy the good times with your son while you can." Encountering the person I disliked on a day off and being ridiculed made me furious. In fact, I wanted to retort, "The hopeless one is you." But with my son here, I couldn't make a scene. However, there was one thing I couldn't forgive. Please don't talk about dumping in front of my son. I didn't want such discussions about being dumped or abandoned to happen in front of Alex. I had already caused enough worry for him. I couldn't let my son worry needlessly any further. Thinking this, I retorted, but upon hearing my response, Daniel just smirked with a corner of his mouth. "Oh, so this is your son." When I heard those words, I thought, I've made a mistake. Because when Daniel's mouth curled up like that, it was a sure sign he had locked onto his target. At that moment, I foresaw that Alex had become Daniel's new target. "Do you love your dad, kiddo?" "I love him a lot," Alex answered with an innocent smile. Smiling gently at Alex, Daniel spoke. "That's good. But make sure you don't end up like your father, all right? You were born to a bastard father, so you'll end up the same if things keep going this way. It's really unfortunate that you have someone like him as a dad." Finally, Daniel ridiculed me in front of my son. And he even subtly insulted Alex as well. I could tolerate being mocked myself, but I couldn't overlook my son being ridiculed. Enough is enough. You're mocking my son too. What have I ever done to you? I had reached my limit and expressed my anger towards Daniel. "Daniel, seemingly not expecting a retort, widened his eyes. That was because it was the first time I had ever lashed out at Daniel. Caught off guard by the unexpected development, Daniel froze. But it was only for a moment. Angered by my retort, Daniel poured his drink over my head. "Talking back to your boss like that, huh? Cool off your head, you fool." Saying that, he threw the empty container at me, further provoking me. We were on the verge of a physical confrontation. It wouldn't have been surprising if it had escalated into a fist fight. That's when it happened. "Hey, Dad, why are you even seriously talking to this guy?" Alex suddenly spoke up. His words even contained a slight taunt towards Daniel. Caught off guard by his sudden statement, both Daniel and I were taken aback. And without understanding the tense atmosphere, Alex continued. "People who can only mock others are bad news, so we should just ignore them, right? That's what Mom said." Alex said this with an expression of pure innocence, containing no malice. I later learned that Alex had been quite worried about my lack of energy. To reassure him, Lisa had said, "Your dad is feeling down because someone jealous of how hard he works is bullying him." Really? People who mock others like that are dangerous, so just ignore them. And such people aren't worth much anyway, so karma will get them eventually. So Dad will be okay and back to his cheerful self soon. Got it. That was the conversation they apparently had. However, Daniel, unaware of this, retorted, "To indoctrinate such a child with such outrageous ideas. Your wife is a real piece of work." Apparently shocked to be called out by an innocent child and resorting to a sore loser's response. His tone lacked the assertiveness it had earlier. But I didn't miss Daniel mocking Lisa. "Are you mocking my wife now?" "Got a problem with that. She's the one who blurts out such rude things to the kid. She deserves to be mocked." Daniel countered my admonition. If only he hadn't said such things, none of this would have happened. Always justifying himself and blaming others for his failures. That's the essence of who Daniel is. Truly a hopeless case. Your wife must be quite mad. Really, I'd love to see the face of someone like that. Daniel regained his composure and said, as if he was amazed. But the timing was not right. "If you're interested in my face, here it is. Would you like to have a look?" "Eh?" When Daniel turned around to the voice behind him, "Hello, I'm Lisa, John's wife." There stood my wife, Lisa. "Oh wait, you are." He was faced with the very person he had just been mocking. Daniel must have been truly surprised. But something was a bit strange. The surprise on his face wasn't normal. The moment he saw her, Daniel turned deathly pale. "Hey, do you know each other by any chance?" I asked Lisa, somewhat guessing. Lisa nodded affirmatively. "Actually." Lisa then shared the details. It turned out that the key client Daniel was in charge of was the company where Lisa worked. And Lisa was the person he had been directly dealing with. Daniel was shocked because he hadn't expected someone from a client company to be here. "You're his wife. How long have you been here?" Daniel managed to speak, finally coming to his senses. "Just arrived. I was quite shocked when you suddenly started mocking me," Lisa said with a smile. She wasn't forgiving Daniel's behavior. When Lisa is furious, she smiles like this. So, at this moment, Lisa was in a rage. "I'm terribly sorry. I had no idea that you were his wife." Noticing that Lisa was angry, Daniel hurriedly apologized. But Lisa's anger wasn't just because of the insult. "Daniel, it seems you've been quite a nuisance to my husband," Lisa stated. "What?" "I heard from him about the terrible treatment he's received," Lisa continued, causing Daniel to break out in a sweat, looking panicked. It seemed he was aware of the harassment he had been inflicting. "Besides the insults to my husband and me, your behavior towards your subordinates as well. I don't feel inclined to do business with such a person." Lisa had concluded that Daniel was unsuitable as a business partner, even aside from me being her husband. "We will discontinue our dealings with you. This contract is terminated." Daniel was informed of the sudden termination of the contract. Then, he began to apologize profusely on the spot. "I deeply apologize for my numerous acts of disrespect, but please, I beg for your mercy." Daniel persisted, despite the situation. "I might have considered it if it were just about work, but you mocked not only my husband but also our son, didn't you?" "That was. I cannot forgive anybody who mocks my family. You should experience the consequences of your actions firsthand," Lisa coldly stated, with no intention of retracting the business termination. "No way." He noticed everything was over. Daniel stood there, stunned, unable to move. Daniel had ended the contract with his actions. But his misfortune didn't end there. When Daniel returned home, he was met by his wife, who looked at him coldly. "Let's get a divorce," she said suddenly, adding that she had already filed with the court. It turned out Daniel often demeaned his wife and son at home as well. He never engaged in family activities and gave only a minimal allowance to his wife while he spent his days drinking. For years, his wife had been contemplating divorce due to such behavior. She had been confiding in Lisa about it. In fact, his wife and Lisa had gotten to know each other through their hobbies. Given their connection as colleagues in the same company, they had developed a close friendship. Having grown close enough to discuss anything, Lisa had been the one Daniel's wife consulted about the divorce. At that time, Lisa had shared with her that her husband, who was surely me, was being harassed by Daniel. Her husband was causing trouble not only at home but also to others. Daniel's wife completely lost any remaining affection for him. After discussing the matter with her son, who suggested, "Maybe it's better to divorce someone like that," she finally decided to go through with it. "Wait a minute, don't rush into things," Daniel pleaded. "There is nothing more you can do. You should be receiving a court summons shortly. We are already prepared to leave the house." Daniel realized he had been completely abandoned by his wife and son. Unable to even argue back, he just had to accept it. Then his wife and son left the house without a word. The next day, "It's all your fault that this mess happened. How are you going to take responsibility?" Daniel lashed out at me when he arrived at work. It was clearly his own doing, so it was absurd that I was being blamed. And I wasn't the only one who thought so. "Come on, it's obviously your fault," one colleague remarked. "Daniel, you're not the one who should be out of line. Rather, you should be the one to apologize," my colleagues and bosses defended me. Before Daniel arrived, I had already explained yesterday's events to everyone. After hearing that story, there was no way anyone would defend Daniel. Thus, not a single employee had sympathy for him, and there were only voices supporting me. "What's going on here, Daniel?" President Anderson. He had arrived at just the right moment. He had come to inquire about the sudden termination of the contract with the key client. Seeing Daniel taking out his frustration on me, he was puzzled. "Mr. Anderson, let me explain to you." One of the bosses who was aware of the situation explained it to him. Upon hearing the explanation, his gaze turned sharp as he glared at Daniel. I had heard reports of problematic behavior towards subordinates, but so this is what it was about. He sighed deeply after saying that. Actually, Lisa had cited behavioral issues towards subordinates as the reason for the contract termination. I later heard that Lisa had been taking notes as evidence of all of Daniel's past behaviors since the moment she heard about them from me. Additionally, Daniel often brought subordinates along, and each time, he would say, "Hurry up, you're useless," in front of Lisa, displaying a tyrannical attitude. It was also said that these exchanges were recorded in audio. The abusive behavior towards me, the tyrannical attitude towards subordinates, and the scenes of unreasonable blame were all witnessed by Mr. Anderson. The evidence was overwhelming. "Daniel, you're fired." "No, this can't be happening." Daniel let out a cry like a villain from a cartoon as he was dismissed. Afterwards, Daniel isolated himself at home. Initially, he tried to find another job, but his bad reputation had spread, and no company would hire him. Lacking friends due to his unpleasant personality, he ended up alone. The exact reason why he had harassed me remained unclear. But I had no desire to see him again and had no interest in uncovering the truth. I decided to focus on the positive result. With Daniel gone, I could work more freely and without stress. I again showed my appreciation to Lisa and Alex. "No, it's all because of your hard work and dedication," Lisa said. "I'm happy to see you cheerful again," Alex and Lisa both said with smiles. After that, I stepped in to take over the boss's role in place of Daniel. Working collaboratively with my supportive colleagues, I dedicated myself to my job every day. Cherishing the support from my family and friends, I was motivated to continue doing my best.